Part 2 of how my mom was putting my dad's ashes in me and my brother's dinner. Continuing on with the story, after I see her literally pouring my dad's ashes into our mashed potatoes, and I mean, this lady literally sees me staring at her pouring the ashes into our mashed potatoes, and she, like, doesn't even say anything. I was just, a little shocked. So after that, I just kept quiet until after dinner, and I was mad at my brother that night, so I just let him eat the mashed potatoes. So after dinner, I went up to my mom and asked her why she was putting our dad's ashes in our food. And her exact words were, "Your father was a bad man. He wasn't meant to be here." I said, "What does that have to do with you putting his ashes in our dinner?" She goes, "It will just cleanse your soul. The witches told me to feed my children's father to them." Bishwa? I ended up telling my brother, but then me and him decided not to ever say anything ever again because we don't want her little spirits telling them to do the same thing with us, so...
Story time about my boyfriend's crazy ex-girlfriend. So a little background information. So his ex-girlfriend's parents, they owned a security company, which sold cameras, alarms, and a few other things. So at the end of 2019, my boyfriend broke up with his ex-girlfriend. And by March of 2020, he started seeing me. And at first, we were just keeping things on the down low. Anyways, so after maybe 3 weeks of seeing my boyfriend, his ex sent me an Instagram message calling me a slut. It's the obsession for me. Anyways, what's even weirder is that she knew everything about my boyfriend and I, even the sexual things. Anyways, like I said, I thought that was really weird, so everything that she had sent me, I sent straight to him. Because I thought, obviously, that he had still been talking to her and had told her everything about us. But instantly, he gave me his phone and said go through it, and he had her blocked on everything. So even though it was weird, we moved on from that situation. Well, fast forward another 2 weeks, and his ex calls him while I'm at his house. Like for part 2. Part 2 about my boyfriend's crazy ex-girlfriend. So like I said, she had called him while I was over his house. And somehow she keeps figuring out things about our sex life and personal things that we had told each other. So my boyfriend and I got super suspicious, obviously. Then we started to think, and we noticed that everything that she was telling us were things that we had talked about in his bedroom. And things that we had done. So we ransacked his whole room looking for anything. And what do you know, I found a mini security camera and a microphone pointing out of his walk-in wardrobe directly towards the bed. He took it to the police and tracked it back to her. So it turns out she had used the hidden spare key, which his mom kept under the mat at the front door, which she had known about from when they dated. So she broke into his house, planted a security camera from her dad's business in his wardrobe. So we decided not to press charges because her parents and my boyfriend's parents were friends. So they just talked it out and decided to punish her in their own way.
Story time of how I found out that I was dating my own brother. Yes, biological brother, same mom, same dad. So a little background information, my mom passed away when I was 2, my dad is currently in jail, and I live with my grandma. So at the time, I was 14, about to be 15, he was 17, about to be 18. So how this all started is one day I was at the baseball game with my friends and he happened to be there. I was fangirling over this boy. Like, I saw him and I was like, I'm going to marry him one day. I was feeling a little bold, so I went over and got his snap. And then I figured out that he had the same last name as me and I was like, dude, that is dope. My exact words were, now I don't have to change my last name when we get married. So we hung out the rest of the baseball game and I was starting to fall in love with this kid. Like his smile, his laugh, I talked about him to my friends the rest of the night. And me and him started snapping for a while. So we started to hang out a lot. We may have hooked up a couple times. But I had to keep this all a secret from my grandma because she forbid I dated somebody. So fast forward a couple weeks, we start dating. Months and months and months go by. Our 9 months come and I finally tell my grandma. And this is where it gets bad. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Okay, so I went to Target about 30 minutes ago. And I was looking for iPad cases, and the iPad cases and the phone cases are all together, but everything is locked up to prevent stealing. There was these 2 adorable girls. They were literally looked so cute and innocent. Pigtails and everything. The mom or dad or parent or guardian or whatever was nowhere to be found. Well, like, wasn't by them. And at max, they were 4 and probably 7. They were tiny little adorable things. One of them pulls a hammer out of their, bag and starts hitting one of the phone case things. Trying to get it out of, the security thing. I already knew what they were doing. And I was like, girls, you're not going to be able to get that out of there. Just go to the cases over there. Because there was, a little section of dollar cases that wasn't, security protected. The 4-year-old, or, the younger one, looks at me and goes, F you, B, but says the cuss words. Throws their little hammer at my foot, but doesn't hit me with it. Then kicks me. Then grabs, the phone case security box thing. Calls me a F-A-G-G, then you know the rest. And said, no, I'm stealing this one, bro.
Am I the asshole for not changing my baby's name again after I changed it for my sister once already. I have a 9-year-old daughter and another on the way. I had 2 grandmothers, Annie and Rose. I named my oldest Annabelle. I did not name her after Nana Rose at the time she was born. Nana Rose was still with us. When I found out I was pregnant with a second, I decided to name her after Nana Rose, who passed in 2017. My sister Lucy got pregnant about 5 months before me. She says that she wants to name her baby Rose after Nana Rose. I say our kids can share the name. She says I already have Annabelle, and I could have named her Annabelle Rose or something, but passed on the chance. So I can't also have Rose. I figured this is not the hill to die on. So I say I'll look for something else. I then crack open a baby book, and after a few entries after Rose is Rosalie. It's perfect. Honors Nana, doesn't piss off Lucy, and my boyfriend loves it.
Dave Nelson, part 3, trigger warning, it's messed up. So after he leaves the bar, he goes to his wife's relative's house. And once he gets there, he knocks on the door, and he knows that her husband isn't going to be home because his wife knows her. They're family, distant family, but they're family. So he goes into her house and attacks Shirley with a fire extinguisher. He beats her with the fire extinguisher, ties her to the bed, and takes her 8-year-old daughter Charlene into another room where he proceeds to SA her. Debbie, Charlene's 12-year-old daughter, is awakened by her mother crying, and she goes into her room and unties her, and then she runs off for help. As she's leaving, she hears her 7-year-old sister Tracy scream out for help, and Dale unfortunately began to attack her, and before she could get help over to the house, he does finish the job on Shirley and Tracy, but for some reason he lets Charlene run free into the woods. So Charlene and Debbie get away, but unfortunately Shirley and Tracy do pass away that night.
Part 2 about how I crashed my dad's very expensive car. So like I said, everybody's taking pictures of the car, but I decided to let it go at first. I mean, there was one point where I went outside just so that way I could kind of let everybody know, hey, you're taking pictures with my car. Well, half an hour later, my boyfriend and I decided to leave, and he's obliterated. Like, we probably got 50 feet from her house, and then I had to stop the car so that way he could get out and throw up in somebody's yard. Anyway, so he gets in the car, we're on the way back to my house. And my house was like a 20-minute drive away. Well, we were 5 minutes from my house. At this one intersection, I get a green light and I go to make a right, and I accidentally hit a car turning out of the bar parking lot. So I'm literally freaking the fuck out. And my boyfriend's in the seat next to me crying for some reason. So the guy in the other car calls the cops. The cops show up, they call my stepdad and my mom. My boyfriend went to the hospital, he had alcohol poisoning. Well, my boyfriend told his mom that it was all my fault and I'm grounded for 6 months. Story time about my psychotic best friend. So we're gonna call this girl Gia. So a little background information. This all happened whenever I was in 9th grade. I saw Gia sitting at this lunch table alone and I invited her to come sit with my friends and I. And after talking to her, I found out that she was a new student and she didn't have any friends. So her and I started hanging out and we became really close. Like, she would come over my house 24/7. Well, my older sister was a grade above us, and she would act really weird around her. And by weird, I mean like she would always make fun of me in front of my sister, and weirdly enough, try to cause problems between us. My sister didn't really like her. She thought that she was weird, but because she was my friend, she was being super nice to her. Well, like a month later, she started trying to become best friends with my sister. Like, any conversation she would have, I would be like, oh, do you want to come over? She would be like, no, sorry, I'm hanging out with your sister today. And I would go home and I would be like, hey, are you hanging out with Gia today? And my sister would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, for part 2.
Here's a story time of how me and my sisters almost got kidnapped. So my mom and her boyfriend were just gonna go out and have a night to themselves, and I was home watching my 2 little sisters. At the time, I was 13, my 2 little sisters were 9 and 6. So around 6 p.m., my mom and her boyfriend leave. Me and my sisters just sit down and watch a movie, and then I get up to make them dinner. I get paranoid really easily, and while I was making them dinner, I look out the kitchen window, and I thought I seen somebody in the backyard. I text my mom and she gets on the cameras that are outside and she said nobody was out there. I continue making them dinner, we sit down and eat, and then we start watching another movie. Then we start hearing knocking. It wasn't coming from any of the doors, it was coming from the side of the house. I didn't want to bother my mom on her one night out, so I just took the kids and we went upstairs and watched a movie in my room. My 6-year-old sister at the time went to the bathroom and she came back in literal tears. She was literally crying so hard until I finally got her to stop and tell me what was wrong. She said as she was walking back from the bathroom, she seen somebody downstairs. I quietly lock my door and I put my sisters in the closet and I call my mom right away. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. So Alexis is only 20 years old when they meet, and Tom, 6 foot tall, huge, Viking style looking dude, Tom, late 40s,
has been divorced twice, he has kids, but regardless of all of this, not that it's a bad thing, Alexis fell head over heels with him. He was an oil field consultant, and this job allowed him to travel wherever he wanted, and that was something that Alexis specifically wanted to do in this year that they took off. So they were traveling all over the place. Now, in this time, Alexis decided she needed more freedom. Just, he had freedom to travel, she wanted it too. So she joins an MLN called Monet. So while in this MLN, she's doing great. She's recruiting tons of people. She's making tons of money. She's showing her lavish lifestyle. She's traveling all over the world. So she gets a decent following. So it's at this time that she begins to become an influencer. Even though she really didn't like that term. She preferred to be referred to as a businesswoman. But she was very influential to the people around her and the people following her in her group. Now, one of the perks of being successful in an MLN like Monet is that you get to go on brand trips. You get to go on these trips and live it up. And it was during one of these trips that Alexis tells her friends that she's having some problems and that she's probably going to get a divorce. That, not probably, the papers are written up, their bank accounts are separate, and that she's thinking about leaving him. She comes back from the trip, it's November 2020, she goes to Thanksgiving with her friend alone, and she lets them know, it's official. And that night, she goes out with a friend until 3 in the morning, and she goes home, and that's, the next day is Black Friday. The next day, Black Friday, which we all know here in the States, that it's a big deal. Alexis doesn't post all day long, which is incredible for her. That's not normal. She posts hourly. That is her business, that is her job. She was tied to her phone, so people start getting concerned because they haven't seen any posts coming from Alexis all day long, and it's a big deal day. So that day, on Black Friday, they do hear from Alexis around 5:30 on the group chat, asking what's everybody up to. And people are like, we're busy, we have family over, let's hang out tomorrow, and they make plans for the next day. But she still hasn't posted all day long online. The next day comes around, their plans, they had a movie night planned, and Alexis doesn't show up. And her messages are getting delivered, but they're not being opened, and nobody hears from her, so they start freaking out. What they don't know is that Tom's already asking all her other friends if they've heard from her. The friends freak out, they decide to call her mom, and Tom's been talking to her too. So everybody already knows that Alexis is missing, but they don't know what happened. Tom says they got into a fight and she ran off barefoot, but she tells other people that he saw her get into some black car and take off. He tells other people that they didn't get into a fight and she just left with some guy. She tells other people that he did. So his story is changing to everybody. It's different to everybody. So stuff starts getting a little bit suspicious, and then the friends, not even Tom, the friends finally go and file an official missing persons report. What the friends don't know is that same day they file the report and start posting online that she's missing, a body has been found. And this body was found nude but immaculate. It was perfectly clean. They said it was almost as if she had just stepped out of the bathtub. And this body's taken in. At first, the cause of death isn't completely obvious. They go and they do the autopsy and they test it, and the cause of death is homicide, strangulation. But nobody knows what happened. What happened that day? To this day, and this happened in November 2020, so it's been a while already. There's no suspects. The case has gone cold. Tom left her body in the morgue for months before he claimed it and was able to send it home to his family. He literally ghosted her mom and just ignored her while the mom's just trying to bury and put her daughter to rest. So I don't know what you think, but I think I have an inkling, me personally, of where this case is going. But I guess innocent until proven guilty, right? But as of now, the case is still cold.
Hope you guys liked this video and found it helpful. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. It does help support us, and let's know what videos you guys want to see.